Welcome to Computopedia, the channel where we learn computer science. In this video, we're going to learn about data manipulation, and this is the second video of the data manipulation, part 2. Okay, this video is one of or part of the set videos of learning in databases with me, Zikri Fudoli. Okay, without further ado, let's go learn data manipulation, which is max, min, average, sum, count, group by, and having. Now, the first five that we're going to learn in this video are max, min, average, sum, and count, which is called as aggregate. If you are familiar with aggregate is in statistics and mathematics that has the function of, maybe in my words, in my point of view, is summarizing. So we want to summarize the numbers that we have. Okay, so the first one is max. The MySQL max function returns the maximum value in a set of values. The max function itself is handy. It can be used in many queries, such as finding the greatest number, finding the most expensive products, or even the largest payment from a customer. And the syntax for the max function just like this one. If you add the distinct operator, just like this one, the max function returns the maximum value of the distinct value, which is the same as the maximum value of all. So rather than doing anything, the distinct value over here doesn't do anything. So it's just like this one, very simple select max from table. This one is also switch. I'm sorry for the slide. The min function returns the minimum value in a set of value. So if max is the maximum, well, of course, the min is the minimum. It will return the minimum value. Sometimes it's very useful if you want to find the smallest number, the least expensive products, or getting the lowest credit limit, and etc. The following query is for select. So select minimum, the column. So these are the columns, and from which table. The distinct, just like in max, is not functioning properly, but it's the reason why it's there is just for the ISO compatibility. Later after this, you're going to see. So max and min are just using one value to get one value, so the distinct doesn't give any effect at all. But for the rest of the aggregate function, we use all of the value or more than one value, so the distinct really takes effect. Now, the third one, which is the AVG or average. The MySQL average function is an aggregate function that allows you to calculate the average value of a set of value or an expression. Can be an expression, can be in select, and so on. The syntax of the average value is just like this. Average, we have distinct here, an expression. If you want to use the distinct operator in the AVG function, and then it just calculates all of the distinct value. For example, we see over here, if you have a set of value of 1, 2, and 3, the average function with distinct operator will return 2. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 divided by 3. This should be 3. I'm really sorry. This should be 3. So 6 divided by 3, which is 2. The 1 over here, because we use this thing, it will only just came out just once. So that's the distinct function, the distinct clause. Now, the fourth one is the sum. So the sum function is an aggregate function that allows you to calculate the sum of a set of values or an expression. The syntax of the sum function just as follow. So once again, we have the distinct, and this one really takes effect. Just like the average, in here we see the distinct, and the sum is like this one. So we see here on the select, we are moving back for one step, I'm sorry. We see here on the query that the average by price from column by price, and then we add some average price. So for this one, we will rename the column name of this average into average price. So rather than giving you AVG as the column name of this aggregate function, using this naming, it will replace or rename the AVG column name to average price, like this one. The sum function is an aggregate function that allows you to calculate the sum value, just like I said before. It uses this thing just like before, and well, it do take effect just like on the average. Let's see how the sum function works. If you use the sum function in a select statement that returns no matching row, the sum function would return null, not 0. So if we want to use the where clause, and on the where clause we didn't have any we didn't have any result. So well, the sum of that will not return 0 because we didn't sum anything. We didn't sum two numbers that have value 0 or anything else, but we sum the something nothing, and then it will return 0. It will return null, not 0, because we sum nothing, and then we got nothing as well. The second one over here, the distinct operators, allows you to calculate distinct values in the set. So you can add the distinct operators allows you to calculate distinct value in the set, just like in the average. If we have 1, 1, 2, 3, and the average for distinct is 2, and if we want to use the sum and distinct, then from set 1, 1, 2, 3, the sum distinct is 6, not 7. So without the distinct, the result is 7, but with the distinct, it's 6. Lastly, the sum function works by ignoring the null values in the calculation. So this one is ignoring. For example, if we have 5 rows, in these 5 rows we have one null, then we will ignore this row as if they are not exist. Let's just ignore this row. So for example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. We have 4 rows, and we have one over here that are null. We add this thing, we sum this thing, and then we didn't add anything. So we just add this 4 column. So there will be no like 8 plus null, things like that. So the sum function ignores the null value. Lastly, about the aggregation. The fifth of the statement that we're going to talk about is the count function. The count function returns the numbers of rows in a table. So the count function allows you to count all rows in a table and just the rows that match a specific condition. The syntax of the count function is as follows, just like this one. And there are lots of rules for the count. So okay, let's slow down and read it slowly. And this one. Okay, so the count, the first one, the return type of the count function is big int. So it's big integer. The count function will return 0 if there is no match row found. So if you have null rows, no match, and then the count will return 0, not null, because it represents nothing with number 0. Next, there are several forms of count function. We have the count and then star to count of all of the rows. We have count expression, and then we have count distinct expression. We have 3 types of this. Now, the count star function returns the number of rows in a result set returned by the select statement. So if we have select count star from table without anywhere, and then it will just return the count number of the number of rows in this table. But if we have some where clause, and then we'll just count how much the result is. The count function over here, we see the count star function counts rows that contain non-null and null values. So just as before, even though there are null value, we will count that. We are not going to ignore anything. Now, if you use the count star function to count the rows in a table without using a where clause and selecting other columns, it will perform very fast. Okay, just counting the number, all of the tables. The count expression returns the number of rows that do not contain null values. So if we want to count a certain column, in one column there are some null over there, and then for this one the null values are not included, so are not being counted. Lastly, the count distinct expression returns the numbers of unique rows. Yeah, over here, just unique rows that do not contain null values. So for example, if we have a row with a column, we have 1, 1, 2, 3 null. We have 5 row, but the 2 are here are the same. So number 1 and the last one here are null, and the count will just count 3. So 1, 2, 3. Null is omitted, and the same number are also just counted as 1. These are the rules of the count statement. Here's all the example. We have this data, for example, this data, we want to count everything. It shows that, well, 9 rows. And over here, we want to count everything from demos, where the value file is 2. So we see here, we have 2 rows with the value val is 2. Then we want to select count distinct val, so we want to count val with the distinct one. It has number 0, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. So the count is 5. So these are the 3 types of count. Now we're going to discuss about the grouping data, which is group by and having. The group by clause groups a set of row into a set of summary rows by values of columns or expression. The definition of the group by may be not really explaining anything, but we'll see in the example and hopefully you will understand about the group by clause. The group by clause will return just one row for each group. So this is quite important. The group by clause will return just one row for each group. In other words, it reduces the number of rows in the result set. For example, if we have like 1,000 rows in a table, usually if you use group by, and then the number of the rows will always be reduced unless the group by we are going to use is all different. Yeah. Okay, so the next point for the group by is that you often use the group by clause with an aggregate function such as sum, just like before. The aggregate function that appears in this select clause provide the information about each group. Now let's see the example. Oh, not yet. The syntax first. The group by clause is an optional clause of the select statement, so this is an optional. Following the illustrate of the group by clause syntax. So the group by must appear after the from and where clause. So this is just right after the from and the where. If you want to use order by, then the group by is first and then the order by is the last one. Following the group by keyword is a list of comma-separated columns or expression that you want to use as criteria to group rows. So you can fill it by column or any other expression. Here are the example. We select the status from order group by status. So we see here, if we just selecting one column, this one is just like select distinct status, because we just found the distinct value of the column status. However, the group by clause are usually used together with aggregate function. For example, here we are using count. So each count are for each group. Here we see that the one that has the cancelled status are 6. The disputed the count is 3. In process the count is 6, and so on until the ship is 303. So maybe most of the time, maybe 90% of the time, using group by, we'll always use aggregate function like this one. So this function is to summarize. Oh, now I see that the one that cancelled is 6 row, and so on. Lastly, that we're going to talk in this video is having. So the having clause is used in the select statement to specify filter condition for a group of rows or aggregates. The having clause is often used with the group by clause. So this is also a companion for group by. And if the group by is omitted, if we're just going to having only, the having clause behave like where. So usually having paired with group by, because if not, we're just going to use the where clause instead. Now, please notice that having clause applies a filter condition to each group of rows, so each group of rows, while the where clause applies the filter condition to each individual rows. So if we have these two, the where will always be like clinging to the from stack from clause, and having will always be clinging to the group by clause. let's see here for the example. Now we are going to see, we select order number, we select the quantity ordered as item count, so we want to rename the sum, and then we also use sum price each times the quantity ordered as total, so we also rename this one from order details from this table. We will group by order number and having total more than 1,000. So here total more than 1,000. So just like a where clause, but we're just going to group by the order number who have more total more than 1,000. So here are the result. So all of the totals are more than 1,000 price, $1,000 maybe, we don't know. And that's the having clause. So that's for this video. We already learned about the aggregate function and the grouping function in the SQL. I hope with these videos you're going to learn something to do data manipulation in databases. So if you want to learn more, please like this video, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.